The most obvious and natural unit for measuring time is the diurnal period, the day and the night. It's obvious, just existing on this planet, you experience sunrise and a day full of sun, and then the sun sets and you have night. And that's natural. And so you also find that although time is measured differently in different parts of the world, although seconds and minutes have become the standard nowadays, for all time, in every culture, the basic unit of time measurement is the day and the night. And then, moving forward from there, the big one that you'll experience is a year. Seasons may be different. Some parts of the world you have a wet season and a dry season. Some place you have all 4 seasons. It just India has 6 seasons, Sat Ritu. That may, depending on where you are in terms of the equator, things change, whether you get a monsoon season or not. But the solar calendar, the trip around the sun, and that whatever seasons you experience, they repeat once a year, that's standard all over the world. So 4 seasons, 6 seasons, that's different. 2 seasons, like Costa Rica has a wet season and a dry season. So 2 seasons, 4 seasons, 6 seasons, that's up for grabs, depending on where you are in the world and how people want to take it. Just like we look up in the sky and we see the man and the moon, but when Indians look up in the sky, they see what in the moon? They see a rabbit. The moon is shashank. It's rabbit marked by the shasha, marked by a rabbit. And if you look and somebody shows you can see there's 2 ears and it's a rabbit. Clearly there's a rabbit in the sun. There may also be a man, in the moon. There's a rabbit in the moon. There may also be a man in the moon, but it depends. Or we say dogs go rough, rough. But in India, what sound do dogs make?
Bow.
Bow, bow. Yeah? Dogs actually don't make rough, rough or bow, bow. That's just the approximations of different cultures attempting to replicate the actual sound that dogs make, that extreme guttural sound that dogs make. But the day and the night, universal. And the year, also universal. Way less significant to us, but way more significant to agrarian societies was the moon cycle. It's a big one. There's light pollution, and so we don't see it so much. But if you go to a place where there's no light pollution, on Amavasya, on the dark moon night, the new moon, it's pitch black, you can't see anything. And on the full moon night, Purnima, you go outside in the middle of the night and it's like daytime. You can see everything. And that lunar cycle is a big deal when you're planting crops, when you plant crops during the lunar cycle, how they're harvested, how many moons go by. You hear this like when you watch TV and there's some Native American, they'll say, many moons. We will see you in 12 moons, or we'll see that I got some, they'll say that. And it's a natural unit of measurement all over the world, but bizarrely one that we don't notice as much. But it's universal. So you got the day and night, the diurnal, you've got the lunar calendar, the moon getting bigger for 15 days, then getting smaller for 15 days, and bigger and smaller. And then you've got the solar calendar. And the Punjika, the traditional Indian calendar, is a lunisolar calendar. It follows the moon cycle and it also follows the sun cycle and finds a way to match them up. The Gregorian calendar, the calendar we currently use, and the Julian calendar before that, they largely ignore the lunar calendar, but not quite. When they first got made, they followed it because you have 12 months. And so a lunar month is about 29 days. And so that month is an homage to the lunar calendar. But anyway, there's a little bit more than 12 moon cycles per year. And so if you don't adjust your calendar accordingly, you end up losing the moon cycle, and we've lost it 1,000, 1,500 years ago, long time ago. The Gregorian calendar is a solar calendar. It gets adjusted with leap years because it's 364.25 days in a year. And so then it gets adjusted. You add an extra day in the leap year, and then it's a little less than that. So every century you skip the leap year. And that's how you regulate the calendar perfectly with the sun. You want to now regulate it with the moon, it gets a lot more complicated. We add an extra month. The Hindu tradition, you add an extra month. There's an Adhik Mas. Every 2.7 years, you add an extra month. And then you fix it. That's how it works. But everywhere in the world, day and night, everywhere in the world, a solar year and a repetition of the seasons, whatever they might be. And everywhere in the world, there is a lunar calendar going on, which is important to this day to people who farm. And although we may be completely divorced from the food cycle, because you just go to your local grocery store and pick up anything you want any time of the year. Like, undoubtedly, you can go and get lychees right now. And mangoes. And they just ship them in through on refrigerated planes and whatever. They gas them and delay the ripening process, and then gas them again and speed the ripening process, or they transport them to planes. It's ridiculous how unbelievably adept we are at transporting food and vegetables all over the world so you can get anything you want. But although it may seem like we exist independent of the growing season, we don't. We eat food, and somebody has to grow it. We may be divorced from that process, like a child is divorced from their family needing to make money and cook food, and they just show up. Or even if you're a small enough child, you're divorced from the passing urine and stool. You don't even know. You're just doing your thing, and then your mom or your dad comes along and wipes you up and cleans you and gives you a shower and changes your diaper, and you're just whatever. Don't even think about it. But although you may be in an infantile state divorced from it, or even as adults we may be in an infantile way divorced from the production of food, we're not. We're dependent on it. And farmers have their harvest moon and their growing season, and they wait for full moon days and dark moon days and plant their crops, and they have to organize things around the water cycle and the moon cycle, and including their harvesting. And when things go awry, you run out of stuff. Like I have a restaurant, I have a vegan restaurant, and there were no blueberries. First time. I've had a restaurant for over 10 years. And for the first time in over 10 years, for about 6 weeks, 8 weeks, there were no blueberries anywhere. You're looking at me like I'm speaking a foreign language. No? You followed what I said? All right. Right? He shops for me as a service, which is much appreciated. But yeah, there were no blueberries. I mean, we figured it out. We got blackberries or boysenberries and made it work. But we had a number of items that had blueberries in them, and we just had to substitute. I mean, we went everywhere. We probably went to 50 grocery stores and couldn't find blueberries anywhere for about 2 months. It happens. Or the price. This happens also. If you run a restaurant, you know this too. Sometimes ginger is like $10 a case. And sometimes ginger is $100 a case. Sometimes avocados are $15 a case. Sometimes they're $150 a case, just depending on what's going on in the marketplace. But none of my customers know that. They're just, blissfully ignorant, expecting, perfect avocados and perfect guacamole any time of the year that they show up. Everything has to just be perfect. And absolutely exactly as they got it last time. If there's a higher, water content, fat or oil content in the avocados, they're just, it's just a catastrophe if I can't manage to keep the exact same oil content in my avocados all year long. But despite the fact that they're unaware and they just pay a premium to not have to think about it, I have to deal with it. So this is a harvest festival. And it's the dark moon night. It's Amavasya tonight. It's dark moon night. How many of you knew it was dark moon night? Raise your hand. How many of you knew it was a dark moon night because you track the moon cycle all the time? Yeah, it's not many. Like a half a dozen of us. It's dark moon night. Makes no difference. It's just monster light pollution and makes no difference. But it's dark moon night, and it's, according to the Hindu calendar, it's the darkest night of the year. And it's the harvest festival, which is part of a larger month-long festival called Kartik, which is part of a longer 4-month-long festival called Chaturmas. And so the Lent Ramadan period, the religious season in India is 4 months. And then within those 4 months, one of them is the most important. That's the month we're in now. And then within this month, there's a 5-day festival that's the most important, and that's the 5-day festival we're smack dab in the middle of now. Diwali is actually a 5-day festival. So it's Trayodasi, the 13th day, Chaturdasi, the 14th day, Amavasya, the dark moon day, and then Dvitiya, the 2nd day, and Tritiya, the 3rd day. That's a 5-day festival. Actually, excuse me, it doesn't go the 3rd day, it goes the 2nd day. So 13, 14, full moon, 1st, 2nd, 5 days. The first festival, the first day, is called Dhan Teras or Dhan Trayodasi. And so it's not hugely celebrated by the diaspora community in the U.S., but even in India, it's not massively celebrated. It is celebrated, and the more rural you get, the more it's celebrated. And so Dhan Teras, standardly, you clean your home, You balance your books. Traditionally, there's different times of the year for the first day of the year. Our first day of the year is on Gaur Purnima in spring, because we're followers of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And so our first day of the year is the appearance of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And we call our year Gaurabda, year of Gaur. It's like the Christian calendar is the year of our Lord, so we also have year of our Lord. It's called Gaurabda. Totally independent, but that's just what religious people do. They take special moments in their calendar, and then they start time based on that. The Muslims have, when they start their calendar, the Muslims start their calendar on what day? No. They start their calendar on the day that Muhammad conquered Medina and established Sharia. Not the day he was born, not the day he had his first visitation from Allah, not the day he began writing the Quran or finished writing the Quran, but it's the day he conquered Medina and established Sharia law there. And that shows you their value system. So our value system, Mahaprabhu's appearance day is our first day. And there's, you're kind of in the Julian and the Gregorian calendar, it's sort of linked to Jesus. Not exactly, but kind of. And but this is the beginning of the year. Tomorrow is, in traditional agrarian society in North India, it's the first day of the year. So on Dhanteras, Dhan means wealth, and Teras is a corruption of Trayodasi, the 13th day. You balance your books, you clean your house, you buy new pots and pans, and you start preparing. And it's like this kind of what's called Purascharya, these perfunctory rituals you do before the main ritual. Then you have Narak Chaturdasi. That's the day that Krishna killed Narakasur, famous pastime of Krishna's. That happened the next day. And the following day is today. It's Amavasya. It's the dark moon day. It's Lakshmi Puja. And so this is when people, and this is what we generally call Diwali, is this day. Diwali comes from Deepa Avali. And Avali is a collection of something, or a row of something, or a group of something. Deepa is a lamp, and so it's a row of, or a group of, or a collection of lamps. And so this is the day you light lamps around your house. You do Lakshmi Puja. Also on Narak Chaturdasi, you get a bunch of sweets. It's a big deal. We also have, in the West, you have Christmas boxes, and you bake Christmas cookies, and there's that god-awful dried fruit cake that I don't think, I'm pretty sure if you gave that dried fruit cake to an animal, it would not eat it. There's stuff, like margarine. Like animals will just pass by margarine because it's clear it's not for human consumption. And so partially hydrogenated oils and things like that, it's just animals don't recognize it as food. It's like they walk past it like they would walk past a piece of drywall, because that's what it is nutritionally. And so I think those dried fruit nut cakes, in addition to tasting horrible, are also, I don't think that they have much nutritional value. But we do that, right? We got the gingerbread cookies and all sorts of macabre stuff people do. Killing turkeys and pigs and all sorts of stuff people do to celebrate. And then there's the eggnog, like the nastiest drink ever created. There's all sorts of weird malecha stuff we do in our country to celebrate these days. But anyway, irrespective of the horror movie nature of our particular libations, there's this idea that there's food associated. And so in India, the food associated is sweets. And so you buy a bunch of sweets on Narak Chaturdasi, you clean your house, balance your books, buy a bunch of new pots and pans. Sometimes you buy gold. They do that in your family? No. You're from the military family, or your wife is? Yeah, it's a whole different culture. Anybody buy gold on these days? right? You do, right? Yeah, it's a Gujarati thing, right? We bought gold for my daughter because it was her 18th birthday, but we bought the gold on Dhanteras. And I thought, okay, we'll get in there and do it. But it's very common, right? You do it, yeah. It's a thing. People, this is what it is. So you want to understand the festival, this is what's going on. There's an end of the year, a balancing of your books, a buying of new things for the home, items for the hearth in the home, and some spending of money on wealth. And it's it's for India, it's as big as Christmas. That Christmas season where people buy and wait till the end of the year, and they also do that for this Diwali season. So then Diwali comes, you give out the sweets that you bought the day before, you invite people to your home, you light lamps around your home, and you do Lakshmi Puja. The year is finished. You bring in the new year with auspiciousness. The next day is Annakut, that's tomorrow, Govardhan Puja for us. We make a big mountain of food, like we do. In North India, again, from the harvest theme, they make the deity of Krishna, and they make it out of cow dung. They make a deity of Krishna out of cow dung. Sounds a little gross to the Western mind, but cow dung is not like feces. It's a fertilizer. It's very, very important, and it's used for fuel, and it's extremely important. Fertilizer is extremely important. It takes years to develop topsoil. We have a farm that we grow vegetables and fruits at about an hour from here. It's taken us years to rehabilitate the soil. It was fallow earth. And we just got a farm in Vrindavan, our temple did. And it took about 5 years. And the first year they grew, and just a few plants came up. And we had to keep treating the soil, and then every year a few more plants. And now it's just a field of green as far as the eye can see, and it's totally fertile soil. It takes time, and fertilizer is critical. So they make a deity of Krishna out of cow dung. And then they have a big hollowed out belly. Have you guys seen this? They have a big hollowed out belly, and then they fill the belly with sweets. So like Krishna ate the sweets, and then you take the Mahaprasad. We just make a mountain out of donuts. That's what, I'm actually not kidding. Look, it's donuts, and you're going to get to eat them all. It's not just donuts. We have all sorts of sweets there, but we used to make it out of halwa. But nobody likes to eat halwa. It's like not a very fancy sweet, and especially because Hare Krishna temples make halwa all the time. It's actually an Islamic delicacy. It was brought over during the Mughal period, so it's not even indigenous Indian, I don't think. Especially the name halwa isn't indigenous Indian. And but we make halwa, and then we would dye it with food color, green and blue to be the lakes and the grass. And if halwa itself is difficult to pass out in quantity to people, then green and blue halwa are next to impossible to get anybody to eat. So then we'd be left with a hill full of halwa, and then we feel awful that we had to dispose of it somehow. So then we start making it out of donuts and just straight sweets, and now we never have anything left. It's made out of cupcakes and donuts, and our congregation eats everything and takes it home, and we'd have not even one morsel left when we pass it out. And people even end up taking it home. They eat it while they're here. They stuff themselves here, and it's a much more valued commodity. Donuts vis-a-vis green and blue halwa. The standard recipe for halwa is I think it's perhaps the most unhealthy sweet ever invented in the history of the world. The standard recipe, I've made halwa hundreds of times, is half a cup of semolina. Half a cup of ghee. Half a cup of ghee. 1 cup, and our temple, the ghee we use here is ahimsa ghee. And all the milk we use here is ahimsa milk. Our feasts are generally vegan because some people are just vegan, so we just make the feast without any dairy products whatsoever. But we use ghee and we use milk and yogurt every single day at our temple. And we cook for the Lord with those ingredients every day. And for the last 20 years, we have never purchased those things from the marketplace. We have our own cows, And those cows are never killed, and all of our ghee and all of our dairy products come from those cows. In fact, we just got a new cow and a calf. And when we get a cow, we don't just get a cow, we get a cow and a calf together, because if you just buy the cow, it means they're going to kill the calf. So we buy a cow and a calf together. And then we take care of them for 15, 20 years until they die a natural death, treat them like kings and queens, and any of the dairy we use here is from that. But anyway, standard recipe for challah is a half a cup of ghee, 1 cup of semolina, which is, like cream of wheat, like a health version of cream of wheat. You could just imagine, farina. Sugar. Well, you just imagine 1 cup of sugar. So you could imagine if you were to have breakfast cereal, and your breakfast cereal was half a cup of oil, 1 cup of cereal, and 1 cup of sugar. 2 cups of water. That's the recipe. Half a cup of ghee, 1 cup of grain, 1 cup of sugar, 2 cups of water. Anyway, I love challah. I don't really eat it these days. I haven't eaten it for about 15, 20 years, but I do like it. I have a lot of nostalgia because I grew up as a young man coming to the temple and eating challah every weekend, and I looked forward to it all week long. So the next day is Annakut, Govardhan Puja. And it's celebrated by making a mountain of food. And this is for tens of millions of pious North Indian Hindus. They celebrate, not even just Vaishnavas, Hindus. And what we do is we recreate Govardhan Hill. And so what we've done is we've made a replica of Govardhan Hill, and you can see all the different places of pastimes on Govardhan Hill with the little placards. And then we go on parikrama. So Govardhan for us it's like Mount Sinai is for the Jews, Christians, and Muslims. It's a holy mountain for us. It's a sacred place for us. And we go on pilgrimage to Govardhan. I go on pilgrimage to Govardhan every year. And then we walk around the mountain. And tens of millions of pilgrims every year walk around Govardhan Hill. It's about 20 miles, 16 to 25 miles, depending on which route you take. And then some people are even more austere, and they don't just walk around the hill, but they offer their prostrated obeisance. They lay flat on the ground, and then wherever their hands were, they then move their feet to there, and then they lay down again. And so they make a ring of prostrated obeisance all the way around the hill. And that takes a week. Then some devotees take it a step further, and they offer their prostrated obeisances in each place 108 times. And they'll have 108 stones, and they'll lay down flat, take a stone from where their feet are, lay down flat and put that stone up by where their head is. Then they stand back up again. They grab another stone, lay down again. They put it, and when they get to 108, they walk forward 1 body length and do the same thing again. That takes 2 months to go around the hill. And then those nights they sleep by the side of the hill. Sometimes they beg a little bit to get enough food. Sometimes they're more like wealthy and they'll go back to wherever they're staying and then go back out to where they stopped. But it's a big deal. And it's not like the weather is easy either. It's getting up to 90, 100 degrees in the daytime. And they're doing it during the daytime. If you're smart, you could start around 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. You finish around 10 or 11 when it starts to get really hot. But you'll see people doing it all day long. It's a really sacred place for us. And I thought we would talk about why it's such a sacred place for us. And I've been warming up until now, kind of warming you up to the holiday season. The last day after Govardhan Puja is called Bhai Dooj. It's a day that celebrates Krishna meeting Subhadra, his sister, and it's generally practiced. Sisters and brothers will get together, and the sisters will feed their brothers, and it's like an auspicious day celebrating family. So Dhanteras, cleaning your house, buying household items and or gold, balancing your books. Nark, Chaturdashi, Krishna killing Narakasur, buying sweets. Diwali, lighting lamps on your house, worshiping the goddess of fortune, bringing auspicious into your home, giving out the sweets to your friend, and fireworks. Somebody called me and said, hey, are you celebrating Diwali? I said, yeah, on Sunday. They go, will we be able to do fireworks? I was like, are you crazy? We're a Monday. Why would you be doing fireworks here? But that's how important fireworks are. That's how important fireworks are. It's a big deal. Huge business. Everyone gets burned. Burn marks. I've been burned doing fireworks. In Diwali. Indian fireworks are like, you got to buy half a stick of dynamite if you want to down the street. It's not.
Just fingers all over the place.
Yeah, it's not that bad, but yeah, it's more like grenade territory. But it's a big deal. I mean, and it's if you're in India during Diwali, you've been in India during Diwali, right? You don't sleep the whole night. It's just like an air raid the whole night. Just massive explosions the whole night, right? You don't sleep. Maybe you're out there doing the mayhem. I'm always trying to go to sleep, but it's a big deal. Huge festival. Huge festival. And then the next day is the Annakut, which we're going to talk about now, and the day after that's Bhai Dooj, 5-day celebration, collectively Diwali, the core of the Kartik month, the core of the 4 months of the Chaturmas, the core of the religious year for pious Hindus all over the world. Basically a tenth of the world's population. Why do we think Govardhan is so special? Why is Govardhan so special to our tradition? Also, devotees will go to die at Govardhan. When it's time to die, you go back to India and you go to Govardhan and you leave your body there doing kirtan. That's kind of our program. It's not a small thing for us. We're linked to the land. The Jewish people are also linked to Jerusalem and Israel. It's there in their sacred text that Adonai, the God of Israel, is the God of Israel, the God of the Jewish people. And their covenant with that deity is about that land and that temple and worshiping on that land. This happens sometimes in certain cultures where a place becomes absolutely sacred to those people. And Govardhan is such a place. For us. It was a big enough deal that when the Muslims came during the Mughal period and the Aurangzeb was destroying temples and breaking deities, we took all of our deities from the Govardhan area and transported them to pious Hindu kingdoms, mainly in Rajasthan, so they'd be protected. And that process took, 25 years. It wasn't like it was done in a night. It's a 4 or 6 hour drive from Vrindavan to Jaipur, but it took about 20 years for those deities to make the journey because they were being hunted. And so they would have to sometimes for years put them in a tank of water somewhere, put them in a river somewhere, remember where it was, tell their child where they put it. The child would then come and grab it. It took 20 years for Radha Govinda to make it from Vrindavan to Jaipur. For Madan Mohan to make it from Vrindavan to Jaipur. For Radha Damodar to make it from Vrindavan to Jaipur. It's a big deal. Also the main deity of the Pushti Marg, the deity of Srinathji, if you're Gujarati you'll know. That deity is from Govardhan. It made the trip all the way down to the absolute bottom of Rajasthan, to Nathdwar. And so this is a big, the place is so sacred to us. And I want to talk a little bit about why the place is sacred, and I'm going to start to move quickly now. We want to love Krishna, not be afraid of Krishna. We have a love-based, not a fear-based conception of divinity. Fear is a great motivator if you're a criminal, but there's just strong limitations on how rewarding and meaningful a fear-based relationship can be. So we want a love-based relationship. And then there's two varieties of love. There's formal love and there's intimate love. formal love is the traditional way. Adi Prabhu, your chair's right there. Of course, Prabhu. We've been waiting for you. Generally, when people think of their love for God, it's maybe it's not fear, but it's awe and veneration. You see God, you bow down, you offer prayers, you feel yourself to be insignificant like an atom. You feel that God is everything, you are nothing. Maybe the most you do is you touch the feet of God, and you kiss the feet of God. You offer some prayers. God is so big, so great, so powerful, and we're so small, infinitesimally small, compared to an infinite deity. The thing is, that kind of hegemony, that kind of power differential, creates a very attenuated, very weak form of love. It's definitely not intimate love. So we don't just want to love God and not be afraid of God, but we also want to love God intimately. And intimacy requires equality. That's why doctors don't have romantic relations with their patients. Intimacy requires equality. Rulers make bad lovers. The famous lyric from a song. Rulers make bad lovers. And this is definitely true. If you want to be close to somebody and you rule over them, you won't be so close to them. It's not that we shouldn't have relationships with elders, but those relationships would not be described as intimate. Intimate love requires equality, which presents us with an impossibility. How could we ever become equal to God in order to love God intimately? So we may want to love God intimately, but you can't love God intimately because God is the most above you person you'll ever meet. There's no comparison. God's a singularity. We're the multitude. God's infinite. We're infinitesimal, infinitely small. How can we possibly love God intimately? You have to forget that Krishna is God in order to love Krishna intimately. In fact, that's what happens in Vrindavan. Everybody falls so much in love with Krishna, they forget he's God. And they imagine that he's just their child, their son, or their lover, or their friend. And so Vrindavan is the place in heaven where everybody forgets that Krishna is God, which then creates the possibility of intimate love. And that intimate love can be fraternal, amongst friends. It can be parental, where you love Krishna as your child, or it can be romantic, where you love Krishna as your lover. And those are the three types of love our tradition aspires for with divinity. We aspire for a state of divine madness where we forget Krishna's divinity so that we can love Krishna intimately and without limit. Vrindavan is that corner of heaven where that's what's going on. There's other parts of heaven, Vaikunt in our language, and there's Lakshmi Narayana worship. Sita Ram are sort of halfway between. They're halfway between. There's more intimacy than Lakshmi Narayan, less intimacy than Radha and Krishna. And then within that Vrindavan, there's a public and a private space. The public space is where everybody interacts with Krishna together. Like, for example, today was my daughter's birthday. And so we made lunch, and the whole family got around, and we sat around and, interacted with our child, sister, friend. But then my daughter also went out with her girlfriends, and just like they would have done whatever stupid stuff they do. And so they would, but that would have been a more intimate space where they would have been more relaxed and more themselves. So Vrindavan has a public space and it has a private space. Govardhan is the private space within Vrindavan. Radharani meets Krishna at Radha Kund, which is in Govardhan. The cowherd boys go and wander around Govardhan. And so the most intimate associates of Krishna, both fraternal, Krishna's friends, and romantic, Krishna's lovers, they meet forever, every day, at Govardhan. And they relish intimate pastimes of love. So Govardhan, within the general apparatus of Vrindavan, where everybody forgets Krishna's God, Govardhan is the special, secret, private space where Krishna disports himself on equal terms with his most intimate associates. And so all these places on the placards are all places where Krishna had various pastimes. And we meditate on those pastimes. And when you go to Govardhan, and in Varshana, it's another sacred mountain. It's Radharani's sacred mountain, the place where she was born. It's also a hill, just like Govardhan. When you go to these two sacred hills, and you walk around them and traverse them, you'll find that pious devotees forever have constructed these little huts that are about, this big. And so they'll take a stone here and a stone here and then one larger stone on top. Sometimes they get a little more elaborate, but that would be the most basic structure. And they build a little hut. And so when you walk around Govardhan, you see tens of thousands of these little huts along the 25-kilometer or 40-kilometer path. You'll see tens of thousands of these huts. And I'm sure the wind blows them down, the rain blows them down, and then they get rebuilt by different pilgrims. And it's been just going on for a long, long time. And what those devotees are signifying is, I want to live here forever with you. When I die and I achieve moksha, when I achieve liberation, I want to be here in this place with you and have pastimes with you in this place. This is my real home. And so we don't think about it like this, but if you have a loving relationship with somebody, to consummate that relationship and explore that relationship and cement that relationship, you require a private space where you're not in the public eye so that you can intimately exchange. Sometimes husbands and wives, if they're in public, the wife will come and whisper something in the ear of the husband, creating a temporary, momentary, intimate space. You follow? You stand up if you need to. You good? But ultimately, you need a place out of earshot of others where you can just be yourself. Govardhan is that sacred space where this intimate relationship with Krishna is most fully explored for our tradition. And so the devotees want to go there, and so what they're doing, they're very carefully approaching. They're walking around it. They're bowing down all the way around it. They're taking the dust from the mountain and putting it on their heads. They're constructing little homes to say, I want to live here forever. They're visiting the pastime places and meditating on them in their mind's eye. When they're ready to die, they go there, so they're in physical proximity to show their heart's desire that this is where I want to go, and I want to be with Krishna forever in a heaven, but not in a heaven where he's worshipped on a big throne, in a heaven where I can embrace him, where I can hug him, where I can dance with him, where he's my best friend. That's what Govardhan is. And thousands of years ago, Krishna appeared in this world miraculously and brought his angelic devotees with him and performed these pastimes so that saints could see them and envision them and write them down and then pass them on for posterity's sake, so we would be able to explore these themes forever. And people anywhere in the world would be able to encounter this beautiful conception of God. And there's one specific pastime that occurred. One miraculous pastime that occurred. and it's traditionally taught on this day, so we will recount it now. Now we've understood the nature of why the place is sacred and our conception of divinity and the aspiration of our tradition. We can then tell the story, and the story has some public and private motifs and themes, and it's perhaps the most beloved story of the Krishna Bhaktas. It's perhaps the most beloved. It gives joy to all manner of devotees, to every type of devotee. And generally, it's stated in our scriptures that generally when devotees hear this pastime, they cry. Now that, of course, depends on the acumen of the speaker, and so I may not be able to pull that off, and you guys could also be a problem, so we'll do the best we can. But the story has profound meaning for us. In Vrindavan, nobody knows Krishna's God. They think he's just their child and their friend. And so they live with Krishna. He's like a member of their tribe, a member of their village. They herd cows together, they milk cows together, they eat together. But he is God, but nobody knows he's God. And so when Krishna eats with all of his friends, they all feel like Krishna chose them and was just eating with them and is facing them. They're like, wow, how did this happen? That Krishna wants to just look at me the whole time we're eating. He just wants to eat with me. And every one of his unlimited Gopa friends, one of his cowherd friends, thinks that Krishna's picked me to eat with today. And Krishna even lets them eat from his plate. In India, it's like, generally speaking, you never eat from someone's plate. It's considered to be insanely low class to take food off of somebody's plate. You would never do that. In fact, if somebody does try to grab food off your plate, it's like a dog trying to eat off your plate. You just take the whole thing. I don't want it anymore. But there's one exception to that rule, and that's when the person is a dear friend of yours. And then you eat off the same plate, and it like shows the intimacy of your relationship. You eat from the same chapati. You're like the closest friends. It shows an incredible degree of a bond, like brotherhood. And Krishna's devotees eat off his plate. And they feel like Krishna's just letting me eat off his plate. Krishna's giving them food off his plate. They're trading food back and forth, and they feel like the most special person in the world. Krishna's romantic partner, Srimati Radharani, and all the gopis, they have the same experience that Krishna loves me the most. Although there's a little detail that they all know that he loves Radharani the most. But in the Ras Leela, every gopi feels like Krishna's dancing just with them. Vrindavan is such a magical place. And so one day, Krishna was with his family. And they were preparing for the Annakut celebration. They were going to do this Annakut celebration. They were going to make a mountain of food. And they were going to offer it to Indra. And Krishna wanted to make the same point that the Jewish people made. Don't worship many gods, worship one. That move from polytheism to monotheism. That there aren't many gods, which generally creates this fear-based relationship where you go to somebody's home and they have many gods and many deities. They're incredibly afraid, and they have to worship all of them and not leave anybody out, otherwise something bad may happen. But when you become a Vaishnava, you lose that fear, and you know that they all are devotees of Krishna. And there's a confidence and a simplicity that comes from this move to a monotheism, to a faith in an ultimate source of everything, instead of many things that are all partially powerful and compete with one another. And so Krishna made that move and said, why are you worshiping Indra? You don't have to worship Indra. And he argued. He said, we're worshiping Indra to get the rain. He said, but it's raining on the ocean. It's raining on the mountains. They're not worshiping. They're getting rain. You think you're getting rain from Indra, but you're not, because if you're getting rain from Indra, just you would get rain. But the oceans get the rain. It rains on the ocean. The mountains get the rain. They're not doing any puja. And so then they said, well, we prepared this whole mountain of food. He said, no problem. Listen, Govardhan is our life and soul. So let's offer the mountain of food to Govardhan. We made a mountain of food, and let's offer it to the mountain the place where we come every day to herd the cows. Let's offer the food just to the mountain. We don't have to worship some Indra. And so Nanda Maharaj, although he's Krishna's father, he's ultimately Krishna's devotee. And so even though he thinks Krishna's just my small child, he still does whatever Krishna wants. Because he's a devotee, he's an angel. Tell the parents. So then, they took this mountain of food. It's like they had all these sweets. Yeah, it's your kids. But I love them. It's all right. I love you, brother. So then, and they constructed a hill much like our own. They had cakes of different colors, and they made up the boulders on the hill, and they had mountains of rice covered with ghee, so it looked like the whole mountain was like covered with just this like incredible, like shiny, like almost like the sun on Kailash, on Mount Kailash, beating off of Mount Kailash. And then they had mountains of rice and lakes of dal and all sorts of pakoras and kachoris and so many sweets. And they just made this huge hill. They had a big kirtan, and they offered it to the hill. And then Krishna said, look, Giriraj is alive. And Krishna manifested a deity on top of the hill. So Krishna made a deity, like made the hill come to life as a deity. He said, normally the branches of the trees are the hill's arms. But now the hill actually has arms. You follow? And he said, normally, and so he said that just see, the hill is reciprocating with us. And so Krishna he himself appeared as another deity on the hill with huge arms and began eating the actual offering that was made. And everybody was just blown away. And then Krishna said, we should bow down. We should offer our obeisances. So then Krishna offered obeisances to the deity of himself that he just manifested to blow the minds of all of his devotees in this very simple mode of worship. So they were all bowing down, doing kirtan. They walked around the hill. It was a gala affair. They fed everybody. Everyone was happy. The cows ate sumptuously. They fed the dogs. They fed the dog eaters, like the lower members of society. Everybody was fed sumptuously. A beautiful kirtan. And then Indra, the god of rain, the god of thunder, Hinduism's Thor, got upset because he felt neglected. He couldn't make that shift to realize there was somebody above him. He thought he was the center of the universe. He didn't realize there was something above him. And so he did what every egotistical megalomaniac did. He tried to destroy the people that were no longer being controlled by him. And so he sent his Samvartak. He sent his clouds of devastation to destroy Vrindavan and kill everyone. And so these clouds rolled in. They made the sky as black as ink, as black as the bottom of a pot that's been cooked over a fire, according to our acharyas. And it began raining columns of water. Columns of water. And there was lightning. It looked like the forked tongue of a giant serpent. Huge lightning came down. Columns of rain came down. It said that rain initially looked like the branches of a banyan tree, just streams pouring down, but it eventually became entire columns coming down. And everybody began to drown in this huge deluge created by an egotistical megalomaniac who couldn't stand that he wasn't being worshipped. And all those devotees who all felt superior to Krishna, Krishna's my child, Krishna's my friend, they all felt Krishna was theirs. They were possessed of mamta, a feeling of mindness. towards Krishna. They did not think, I am yours. Tavasmi. The Ramayana says we should say, Tavasmi, I am yours to Krishna. But they thought, no, Krishna is mine. He's my friend. He's my lover. They felt this intimate love for Krishna. But in their moment of need, because they're Krishnaika Sharanam, they're surrendered to Krishna, in their moment of need, they always turn to Krishna. And so even though Krishna was like their child, when the storm came, you couldn't tell high ground from low ground, everyone was about to die, they all came running to Krishna. And they said, please save us. Please save us. And Krishna's response was, this is like if you eat a big meal and you get a little tummy ache. This is nothing. This is nothing. And Krishna jumped up, didn't even bother tightening his sash, just jumped up immediately and just grabbed the entire mountain, this is a huge mountain of Govardhan, with his left hand, not even his right hand, with his left hand, and just picked it up in the air. Like a child picks up a mushroom. So there's this huge mountain, and Krishna's devotees love him, and they're having these loving pastimes, and somebody's coming to disturb them, and they're all of a sudden in great danger. And they all turn to Krishna, not even knowing that he's God, just they love Krishna so much, they always turn to Krishna. And he said, help us. And Krishna immediately saved them. Picked up the hill, and then said, look, there's a beautiful valley underneath here. And look, the side of the hill stayed, so it's created a natural border from the rain. Just come in, and we can just spend time here, no problem. And Krishna held the hill for 7 days, and all of the devotees went underneath the hill, and they spent 7 days together, and it was this amazing event, because normally Govardhan was a place where Krishna would only go with his most intimate devotees. But now all the devotees were there. And Krishna was holding the hill, and they were all just staring at Krishna the whole time, thinking he was just staring back at them. And Mother Yashoda was there, and Srimati Radharani was there, and the cowherd boys were there, and they had these ridiculously enchanting and charming conversations. Mother Yashoda, who loves Krishna like a mother, would say, your arm must be hurting. She'd start massaging Krishna's arm. Because even though her son was displaying his Aishwaryatva, his Bhagavatva, his Ishwaratva, his godhood, she could not escape thinking of him as a child. And she began feeding him. He was playing his flute. She said, take the flute out of your mouth so I can feed you. And she began feeding him. Then the cowherd men, they thought, oh, Krishna, you're a young boy. You cannot hold this hill. We will hold the hill. But they're like, the hill would have crushed them. And so the cowherd men all took their cowherd sticks and they held the hill up. And so they're all standing around Krishna thinking, we will hold the hill. You can let go. And then Madhu Mangal, Krishna's best friend, he told Mother Yashoda, he said, no, I'm chanting mantras. I'm a Brahmin. I'm chanting mantras. And so the hill is being held up by my Brahman Tejas. And so Krishna's feeling no pain in his arm whatsoever. And then Mother Yashoda said, oh yeah? That's what's happening? She said, then Krishna, let go of the hill. And if the hill flies on its own without you holding up, then I'll believe you. Otherwise it's disturbing me. And you should shut your mouth. Then Nanda Maharaj jumped in and said, Yashoda, that's his wife. He said, Yashoda, we're in a difficult circumstance. You're in anxiety. Madhu Mangal is speaking in such a way to pacify you. You should not be mean to him. You should be kind to him. And they had these wonderful, intimate, familial exchanges. Radharani would look at Krishna, he'd look at Radharani, then his arm would start to shake. People would get scared because he felt so much love erupting within him when he saw Radharani. His mother was there, the cowherd boys were there, the cowherd men were there, and it was this amazing public appearance in the most private space. And Krishna saved his devotees. And the reason why devotees love this story is because we all have the experience of Krishna saving us. For sure, I bet my life, Krishna will save me. I'm not afraid. Krishna's always protected me. He protects all of his devotees, even insignificant ones like myself. And my life is just one event after another of Krishna saving me and protecting me and nurturing me and suckling me and caring for me and nourishing me. And when I hear this story, I have no doubt this story occurred. Because, of course, an omnipotent God can pick up a mountain. He created the whole universe. And, of course, an all-loving God would do that for his devotees. And all the Vaishnavas experience this. They all have one moment after another in the course of their life of Krishna protecting them, caring for them, teaching them, pushing them forward, helping them, not letting them be complacent, helping them to level up. That's our life. And so when we hear this story, of course Krishna lifted Govardhan Hill. Of course he satisfied his devotees. Of course he took the most difficult circumstance and turned it into the most beautiful experience. What was a flood, what was killing people, what was destroying the world became the most intimate moment of closeness between the devotee and Krishna. Of course that happened. It happened in my life, so obviously it must have happened in the lives of the great devotees. And that's why this story is so beloved by the Vaishnavas and so meaningful for the Vaishnavas. Because it conveys these deep truths that we experience, that we stake our lives on, that we build our lives on. My only experience in life is I've failed Krishna. I've never experienced Krishna failing me. All the problems in life that I have are because I'm a terrible devotee. I'm not a good devotee. I'm not sincere. I don't get the message. But Krishna is just the most kind, the most loving, the most nurturing. And so when we hear these stories, although they seem fantastical, they make perfect sense. They're perfectly consistent with an all-good and all-powerful deity, and furthermore, they're perfectly consistent with our own experience in life. So that's Govardhan Puja. So again, days and nights, everybody experiences. Months, which is the lunar, everybody experiences. The year, everybody experiences. We come up with fake things like the week related to the planets. It's just totally arbitrary. It's not in any way linked to those actual planets in any meaningful way. But these are the natural circadian rhythms of the world. And we celebrate them. And so we have the 4 months of the rainy season, the 1 month of Kartik, the harvest festival, the 5 days of our particular harvest festival, the darkest night of the year when we've made it through because we've harvested our grains and we're going to make it through the winter time. We celebrate this. But for us, these other miraculous spiritual events that are very, very very kind of beloved by our tradition, they also took place. And so we celebrate them. And so we built a hill, even in Laguna Beach, and all 800 of our temples around the world, we build a hill today. We're going to do kirtan and arti. We do an arti to the hill, just like Nanda Maharaj and the Brijbasis did arti to the hill. We're going to do arti for the hill. Adiprabhu, if you do us the honor, Adiprabhu will do the arti for the hill. Simultaneously, the pujari will be on the altar, up on the altar. And then when the artis finish, we'll walk around the hill together, just like the Brijbasis walked around the hill. And just like tens of millions of pilgrims and hundreds of thousands of saints have been circumambulating Govardhan Hill, we will offer our respects to them by following in their footsteps. And then have a big feast. Thank you so much. Giraj Halal ki, Govardhan Puja ki, Go Premanande.